Okay, so welcome to everybody who is watching this interview. Today we are here with Jessica Fridrich. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, Rafael.
First of all, I need to say that thank you very much for to accept this interview with me. For me, it's a big pleasure to talk with you. As everybody know, you are a very important person in the cubing world. So thank you so much for to accept this interview with me. So Jessica Fridrich is from Czech Republic, but she lives in New York, where she works in the University of Binghamton, I think, no?
Yeah, that's
And
correct.
as everybody know, Jessica is a very important person in the cubing world because she's very famous for to documenting and to popularizing the CFOP method, also known as Friedrich method. So welcome to this interview, Jessica.
Yes, I'm ready for your questions. It's a pleasure to be, participating.
So the first question, Jessica, is very simple. It's always the same for all the interviews I do. So how did you know the Rubik's cube?
Well, it was way back in 1981 when I met the cube for the first time. Um, it was like a camp for high schoolers interested in math, and there was one person who had the cube, and there were about 25 other kids from all over the country who were extremely interested in exploring it too. I read about this before, but the first time I saw it, I it was at this math camp kind of for a week, and I only had it for about 15 minutes. I could figure out just the first layer, that was it, and then it was just taken away from me because it was like a big hit. Everybody loved it.
Good. And talking about today, do you continue practicing speed cubing or not? Yep.
Not much. I keep in shape so that I can still solve it between 17 and 20 seconds, but I'm not really practicing.
Good. And what do you think about the topic that said most of the cubers are freak or nerd person?
Well, I don't like labels, but yes, I would say that most of us are kind of nerdy. That's kind of natural, and there's no shame in being nerdy. Actually, you should be proud of it. So yeah, why not? I wouldn't say freaky, but nerdy definitely, yes.
Yeah. And now we are going to talk about the main point of this interview, obviously, is the Friedrich method, no? And the people in the forum want to know how the method was born. What is the born of the method? Or how did you think about the creation of a new method for to be quickly?
Well, first of all, the whole environment was very, very different back in 1980s, early 80s. So I wasn't thinking of creating a new method, essentially. And it was a very long process. It took about 2 years. I was trying different things, doing the first two layers in several different ways. Also doing the last layer. I mean, I switched to the orientation and permutation very early because I saw that this has a great potential. You can easily recognize the positions on the cube, and there are not that many positions to find algorithms for. But for the first two layers, I was kind of struggling with that. I was actually inserting two QBs at the same time from the third layer into the middle layer, and I was kind of covering all the possibilities this way. I thought this would be the way to go, to put two instead of one from the third to the second. But then I saw some people around me using what I eventually switched to. They were not very fast, and I don't know who was the first one. I'm sure it has been rediscovered many, many times. Um, that spread over one and a half or 2 years.
Wow. And about the creation of the method, did you have help in the creation? Because one time I read about that David Singh Master was developed the cross, or the F12 was developed by René Schoff, and you create the OLL and PLL. Was right about that?
Well, first of all, we are never alone in this universe. There were other cubers, and they contributed with specific algorithms, I would say. And it was very common, for example, to bump into someone on a bus, and we would be solving the cubes, and somebody would just come and say, "How do you do this?" And I would say, "Well, this way." Okay, thanks. Or I would ask someone. So there were some anonymous people, that might have contributed an algorithm or two. But when it comes to the cross, I think it's kind of funny to say that David Singmaster did it. I'm sure that, that this is actually so simple that just about everybody figured it on their own. But the first two layers, as I said, I'm sure there are multiple parallel discoveries of this. I learned about this from a friend of mine, Robert Krajča from Czech Republic, who was at the college with me. He was doing it this way, and he was not the only one. There were other people using this method, putting the corner and the edge at the same time. It was also used by Gu Reza Schultz at the first World Championship. He used it too. I'm sure that René Schöff invented it as well. So there are multiple people who came up with that same idea. And if we continue the orientation and permutation, I'm sure that other people invented as well. And it's difficult to say who was the first. I don't think this is actually a decidable question. What is decidable is who popularized these approaches. That is something that can be traced back.
So that is correct to say Fridrich method, or you prefer to say CFO method? What do you think about it?
Well, I don't have a preference because I think the history will take its own path. I had no idea that there is going to be something like a Fridrich method, actually. So whatever people call it, you cannot force these things. These things take their own path. So whether it's going to be known as the Fridrich method, alias C of AP, or vice versa, only the masses and the history will decide.
Cool. How did you find the best solution for each case? I mean, how did you find the best move for each case? Did you use the computer or your mind or what?
Well, bring yourself back to 1981, where most of the current speedcubers didn't exist. There were no computers. We had pocket calculators. So there was not much you could do with a computer. So it was all based on either logic or trial and error. Most of it actually. For the third layer is trial and error. What we did, basically, we tried to remove a corner from the first two layers and then put it back in a different way. And this is how most of them were generated, essentially, especially for the orientation, which are kind of difficult to figure out logically. So it was most of it was trial and error.
So this was a hard job, no? A long time.
It was a hard job. Yes, it was a hard job. There were positions that were kind of hated by people who use the system because there were kind of long algorithms or algorithms that are difficult to execute, that use too many layers and so on. So yes, it was tough.
Amazing.
It's done differently today. It's a very big difference.
Wow, amazing. About the F2L, you said in your website that a cuber should concentrate in the most common cases instead to practice a lot on algorithms. Do you think the same today, or have you changed your mind?
I would say the more algorithms you know, the faster you are. So people always learn as many as they can.
Good. And today you continue creating algorithms or studying the cube, or the cube have finished for you?
I don't develop any algorithms today anymore. So I think there are other people who have the enthusiasm and time for this. So the answer is no. I'm not developing any new methods or algorithms.
Good. And 20 or 30 years ago, did you imagine that your method would be the most famous and used in the world? And did you imagine that your method can solve the cube in 5 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to both questions is no. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea that this is going to become a really popular method. when I posted it on my website in 1997, it was because somebody convinced me to do. But in my mind, I was like, nobody's going to learn this and cube, because speed cubing was pretty much dead, at that point. So I was very, very surprised, like 3 years later, that actually, there was a whole community on the internet and everybody used the method. It was a big surprise. In about 5 seconds, yes, I would never ever dream that this is possible. This is, I think, absolutely amazing. It's kind of funny because it's no longer exactly the method that I used, so it's actually a different method. I always compare it to a house. Somebody can design the house and say where the bedroom will be, where the living room, the bathrooms, maybe the garage will be, and then you can put your own furniture and cars inside to kind of customize it. And this is what the Fridrich method is. It's the house with the layout, and the algorithms have been replaced. I mean, some of them are kept, but most of them were replaced for a certain type of cubing, for a certain type of finger tricks. The algorithms that are the shortest are not necessarily the best for execution. So the system has been optimized by many other people. Again, it's a distributed development. A lot of people contributed to the current system that people use. So I'm very, very amazed that somebody can solve the cube in 5.5 seconds. That's just nothing
Yes.
close to a miracle.
Yes. And imagine what I'm going to say to you. Today, as you know, the quality of the cubes are very different than 20 years ago. So, what do you think about if, for example, in the 80 ages, no, in 20 years ago, if the quality cube that exists today have been existed in 20 years ago, the times will be better or?
Oh, no doubt, the times would be much, maybe not much, but would be definitely shorter, because no doubt the times would be shorter, but not as short as today because we didn't have the algorithms. For example, if you want to optimize the algorithms for the hands, you want to make sure that you use only, let's say, 3 faces or as few as possible so that you can insert those finger shortcuts and so on. And those would be difficult to find without a computer. So I would say the times would be shorter, but not as short as today. There were essentially there are two types of cubing styles. One when you grab each face and turn it, and then you have the finger pushers, who pushed with their fingers, and those can be astonishingly fast because you can have powerful finger tricks. Now, this style has already been around way back in the 1980s, and these people need to stay really cool in competitions because any sort of trace of nervousness completely, took these people apart, and they kind of break under the pressure because you had to be really accurate with the finger pushing. This was a more robust way of turning the cube.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the first World Championship when we actually got brand new cubes that were not broken in. That was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing that anybody managed to solve it in 22 point something seconds. So I would say the internal mechanism of the cube is a big part of today's 5-second times. If the cubes didn't develop concurrently with the algorithms, we would not be at 5 seconds today.
Well, the other day I was talking with a member of the Spanish forum, Alexander. Is a very interesting person, and in the interview that I did for him, he was talking about that the best method for the Rubik's cube today doesn't exist, but he said that the best method will be the method which solve the cube in 20 moves, because today we know that the cube could be solved in 20 moves, the number of God. Have you heard about it?
Well, again, I don't want to say that I'm skeptical that this will ever happen because I was wrong in many times in the past, but it seems it seems really, really hard to do because the way, figuring out the shortest move, I'm not sure if this is within the power of the human brain. And for practical solving, any algorithm has to be always decomposed into phases because we cannot simply see that far ahead. So I'm not sure if people will ever be solving cubes within 20 moves for speed solving. I'm not even sure if anybody can do that given infinite amount of time to figure it out from the beginning. But if you limit the inspection time to 15 seconds or whatever it is today, there will be necessarily a limit to how far ahead you can think.
Yeah.
And I don't think people will be solving the cube in 20 moves. But definitely the times will keep on going down, but where they will stop, that's just absolutely fascinating question that I have no idea. We know that it will, if you took those 20 moves and did 10 moves per second, then you can say that the absolute limits of speed cubing would be 2 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how long it will go from 5 seconds.
So, Alexander, you know now what Jessica Fridrich think about it.
Well, I don't want to discourage anybody, so Alexander, go for it and try to do this. We should always try to do something that other people think is undoable.
Yeah.
So my skepticism shouldn't discourage you.
And Jessica, do you meet Erno Rubik or not?
Yes, I met Erna a couple times in 1982 at the World Championship. I met him recently in New York City when they were opening up an exhibition for the 40th anniversary of invention of the cube. Yes, I met him a couple times. Yep.
And have you spoken with him about your method?
Not specifically in detail about the method. I showed him my notebook, which I kept. It's pretty old now, kind of with yellow pages, and he was just going through the pages and just talking to himself, the old golden times.
Good. So, Jessica, do you want to say something to the Spanish cubers or the cubers around all the world?
Yeah, well, have fun with the cube.
Jessica has been
keep pushing the boundaries. Keep surprising the skeptics.
So, Jessica, has been a very big pleasure to talk with you. Thank you very much to accept the interview. I say to you again because for me as a SpeedCuber is a unique opportunity in the life to talk with you. When I started the cubing, I always hear about 3 names: Erno Rubik, Felix Sembes, and Jessica Fridrich. So I need to talk with Erno Rubik to complete the 3 persons.
I'm sure he will talk to you.
So I say to you again, Jessica, thank you very much and have fun cubing.
You too, Rafael. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.